Hey guys, it's me Arjun of Fits by Arjun. I'm here to give you 10 tips for your college essays. Starting with the first tip, I would say plan out your essays. I would recommend doing 5 different types of essays: your extracurricular essay, your community service essay, your academics essay, your challenge or obstacle essay, and an essay about your major. You normally cover all the additional prompts that you have to do for universities, and it's just a great way to just like spread out your essays and show different parts of your personality. I would say write about 500 words for each essay, and then you can have a condensed version of around 250 words and just apply them to whichever unis need them. I would also suggest having this spreadsheet of all the unis that you're applying to and all the essays they require. And after you're done writing these like 5 or like 4 essays, depending on how many you want to write, you can just like mark off whichever ones overlap, so that way you don't have to keep writing new essays each time. And I would say this also helps with the UCs like UC Berkeley, UCLA, because they have 8 different prompts, and when you cover these 5 types, it covers most of those prompts. You would have to have some kind of personal human tone coming through. Officers really like the human side of you and you being like vulnerable and showing that you actually have some weaknesses and some flaws. And especially when you have authentic vocabulary, if you're somebody who's not using flamboyant English, don't use it in your essays unless it actually enhances what you're trying to say. At the end of the day, they are judging you based on whatever you submitted. Like if you are not excelling as much as in English, or you don't have extracurriculars or any experience in creative writing, you're not going to have this highly technical essay with vocabulary which they've never heard of. And it's also difficult for admissions officers to like have this like random vocabulary just coming in where you like they can tell that you've just like placed it in to sound like you know what you're saying. So I would just say stick to your authentic tone and just use some like flamboyant vocabulary here and there which you can search on the internet, but otherwise really like just don't bother doing that, because it's actually gonna reduce the chances you get into your universities, in my opinion. Have somewhat of an informal tone in some places, I would say. Like you can't use like slang and stuff like that, but I would say that this adds to like the human side of you, to have some sense that this is not like some research paper or some formal document. You need to show your personality at the end of the day, and they need to like, it's almost like having a conversation with the admissions officer, which I think they like, but you can't make it obviously too informal, like hey, hello, how are you doing and stuff like that. I mean, if that's your style, go for it, like for sure, but like I would like sneak in some informal tone here and there to like break up my sentences. And also I don't adhere to like conventional sentence structures, which I think was a bold move for me to make. I don't know if that's going to work out for everyone, because some admissions officers might take them as like grammatical mistakes, or like just being like bold and risky, and it might not work out. But for me, in my case, like getting accepted into my colleges, I think that's what set my essays apart. I've like changed formats up. I've put like bold sentences, bold lines, headings even in some places. So like I think don't always go for what's conventional, but don't step too outside the box, because then you're just completely like just going off topic and they're gonna be like, what is this person doing in their application? And also don't slap on random vocabulary, like I said before. Like it just makes no sense. Like you can tell when somebody's just put a word in for like no sense, for like no reason at all. They just like slap in some like random like ubiquitous or some like nonsense like that. Just don't do that. The next tip that I suggest is your prompt selection. So first of all, with the 5 different categories I gave you to write, I would say make sure to either select a prompt that you already have an essay written for. That way you know that you have a killer response for it, so you're already done with that essay and you can just like make some like personal changes like depending on the university. And also just have a prompt or select a prompt which is more personal or relatable to your application. Maybe it says something that, oh, like talk about your creative side, and you're applying for either creative major or your extracurriculars are like towards that and you have a lot to write about. I would suggest going for that kind of prompt. Like don't go for a certain prompt for the sake of it. Like community service is like important to universities, but if you don't have that strong community service, don't just write about it because you think that that's what's gonna push your application compared to others, because they're gonna think you're like a good person. Play on your strengths, because they've made the prompt selection in a way that you can decide what to write about, and use it to your advantage is what I would say. Stick with the prompt in the sense that you need to answer what they're asking. But for me, I especially like kind of bent my answer in a way, like if they were gonna ask me like, why do you excel inside and outside of the classroom, talking about an experience for my classroom and then an experience outside my classroom, and then towards the end like really answer how I excel. So it's not directly answering the prompt, but it's like still sticking to it in some sense, because universities need to know that you're able to follow their instructions or their question well, because if you write about something completely whack, they're gonna think that you didn't even write, or like you didn't even read their question and you're just like copy pasting it from somewhere else. I would also say you need to make it very personalized and sell yourself, like be narcissistic, not like in like to a very high extent, but like be narcissistic to a point where you're actually like highlighting things that are not obvious when you write them in like your activity section or in your personal information section. Like supposing you're talking about some like sport or something, yes, it's very obvious that the sport requires a lot of physical strength, but like does it require mental strength, and how did you overcome it? You're gonna talk about things that aren't really obvious in your application, in your essays. I need to highlight those things specifically because that's what the admissions officers are looking forward to reading in your essays. Do not repeat things that you've already talked about already in your like application, like in your activity section. If you're talking about, oh, I instructed these people twice a week for like 3 months or something like that, you don't need to repeat the same statistics in your Common App essay unless you're adding value to it. So I would say if you're taking it in the sense that, oh, this is what taught me what like leadership is, and this is how I developed as a person, blah blah blah, then you can definitely mention it, but like try to have like show a different side of what you're talking about. Like if your activity is about some sport, try to talk about something you've not explained in your activity, if you understand what I'm saying. You don't want to waste your words because you have a limited amount of words. And also, like adding to the word limit, remove random facts unless you're basing your essay on that, or like some point or that on that, or it adds relevance. Like think of the line and how it adheres to the question or how it adheres to the paragraph you're writing about, and really make sure that it like does make sense. Because if you're just gonna say, oh, like media is extremely influential in general, it's gonna make no sense whatsoever. Explain, evaluate, and predict. Show new sides of your personality by first of all explaining your experiences, then evaluating what the experiences meant to you and how you're going to grow from them. So you're like predicting what you will do with that in the future. And you need to really just reflect. I think reflection is a huge part of essays, and it's very integral, because you're letting the admissions officers know that you're not only doing this activity as not only like helping you with your like different skills and hobbies and passion, but it's also like developing your personality and making you grow as a person. And I think you really need to show how that specific experience or story or anecdote, whatever you're talking about in your essays, really changed you. I also think that you should elaborate on like things that aren't so obvious in your application, in the sense that supposing there's like a dip in your grades, or like your grades have dropped from like one year to the other, explain why, because you don't necessarily get to explain that unless you're taking that specific space on the Common App. I think there's a question to talk about why have you had like an academic, or why has this affected your academic performance, or like whatever. But I would say take time to explain all of that, because it's not clear to admissions officers. Maybe there's some obstacle, there's some challenge, maybe you focused on your extracurriculars, maybe you lost motivation, maybe it's mental health. But make sure you communicate this to the officers, because the people who are reading your application are just gonna look at the grades as, oh, there's a dip in grades, but they have no reason, so they're forced to assume that maybe you're not up to the caliber, you've lost motivation. But you need to explain to them like and justify why you've actually like dipped academically, or why you chose to do something else. I think it's really important to explain things that you haven't made clear in your application through your activity section and your honors. I would also say you need to really pay attention to your grammar, and my main advice is to have someone proofread your work. This is so important because they can help you with grammar. At the same time, just look at like how your essay flows and stuff like that. Obviously, you can use apps like Grammarly and stuff like that, which I did use at first to have my essay draft, and then I got it proofread by external perspectives, and have a varied audience. Maybe have somebody similar to your age, somebody who's at a higher age, somebody from a different industry, somebody who is well versed with like who you are as a person, to get like different perspectives, because some people who know you too well might already know certain parts of your personality, whereas if you're giving like your essay to somebody who doesn't know you as well, or like a stranger or someone like that, obviously not a stranger, but like someone who doesn't know you as well, they wouldn't have like that obvious connection that people who know you will make. And that's exactly what's going to give you the mindset of admissions officers, because they have no idea who you are. But yeah, those are all my essay tips. If you guys want any other videos, let me know. And I'll be posting my college decision reveal sometime this week, so stay tuned for that. I'll be posting it on Instagram, and then there'll be a YouTube follow-up video. But yeah, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment if you actually enjoyed this video, and put on the bell notification if you want to stay tuned for like any future videos, especially my college decision reveal. Okay, I'm Fits by Arjun, and I'll see you next time.